Hello, everyone, and welcome to another lesson here at English Pod. My name is Marco.
And I'm Catherine, and today we have an elementary level lesson all about life with a roommate.
That's right. So sometimes during college, you have to live with a roommate because, living alone is too expensive.
Also, after college, I know that a lot of people who are just starting their jobs often live with their roommate to save some money.
That's right. Or maybe your girlfriend could be considered kind of like your romantic roommate.
I hope not in the sense of today's lesson. We're talking about problems with a roommate. So let's listen to this dialogue and we'll be back in a moment.
Charlie, do you have a second?
Yeah, what's up?
Well, I went and paid the bills today, and you still haven't given me your half.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about that. I agreed we would go halves on all the bills, but frankly, I think it's unfair.
Unfair? Why?
Well, you have long hair and use the hairdryer every morning. I don't. You leave your computer on all night downloading torrents. I don't. You see what I'm getting at here?
You leave the air conditioner on day and night. You also take 30-minute showers, which means you're using way more gas and water than me.
Well, while we're on the subject, stop bringing your friends over for drinks every weekend. You always leave a mess and keep me up all night.
Maybe you should just move out and find another place.
Maybe you should move out.
All right, we're back. So we have a couple of different words that we're going to take a look at now in language takeaway.
Language takeaway.
So the first word is a dreaded word. That means that most people don't like it. They fear it. This is bills.
That's right. You have to pay your bills. So a bill is the paper that tells you how much you have to pay.
That's right. So you can have a gas bill,
An electricity bill,
a cable bill,
or even at the restaurant, you ask for the bill.
All right, so this is the amount of money you need to pay.
That's right.
And usually at the end of the month, you receive many, many bills in the mail, and you have to pay the companies like the gas company and the electricity company.
That's right. So those are bills. Singular would be a bill. Okay.
And so this is how the argument starts. The two roommates decide that they have to pay the bills, but they don't want to split the bills in half, go halves. They have to pay their own. And
Right.
so one person says, listen, this isn't fair. You leave your computer on all night downloading torrents.
Okay. So we understand what it is to download something. You download this podcast, but a torrent, what is that? That's kind of technical.
That is. So a torrent is a kind of file that you can download from the internet. So basically, when you want to download a movie or some music from the internet, you go to a website that will connect you to someone who owns this movie or book or music, and they'll have a special file that's called a torrent file, and that's what you download.
That's right. So it's a new way of downloading files off the internet from many people, kind of like a peer sharing.
That's right. So when one person disappears or goes offline, it shares you with another person.
That's right. So those are torrents. And now, well, they kept arguing about you have to pay this, I have to pay that. So you said, you know what? You should just move out.
Ooh. So to move out, this is a phrase that has two words. To move out, it means to leave this house forever, this apartment. So that means to find a new place to live.
Right. So I can say, oh, I'm moving out this weekend. That means I'm changing apartments.
Right. Or my boyfriend just moved out.
Okay, so that
That was
means
really sad.
he left your house. Okay, so that is to move out. And now we have a word that is more colloquial of how to say a house or an apartment.
This is place. Okay.
So you just say a place.
So place normally is a location. Okay. Where is this place? But we could say, hey, we're going to have dinner at my place. Would you like to come?
So that means we're going to have dinner at my house.
Right. My place.
My
His
place.
place.
His place. Or you have a really nice place.
Thanks.
Okay, so that means you have a really nice house.
Exactly.
Okay, so 4 keywords today. Why don't we listen to the dialogue again, and we'll be back in a little bit.
Charlie, do you have a second?
Yeah, what's up?
Well, I went and paid the bills today, and you still haven't given me your half.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about that. I agreed we would go halves on all the bills, but frankly, I think it's unfair.
Unfair? Why?
Well, you have long hair and use the hairdryer every morning. I don't. You leave your computer on all night downloading torrents. I don't. You see what I'm getting at here?
You leave the air conditioner on day and night. You also take 30-minute showers, which means you're using way more gas and water than me.
Well, while we're on the subject, stop bringing your friends over for drinks every weekend. You always leave a mess and keep me up all night.
Maybe you should just move out and find another place.
Maybe you should move out.
All right, we are back, and we've got some great phrases today coming up in Fluency Builders. Let's take a look at some of those.
Fluency Builder.
All right, so the first phrase that we have, very common, very, very common, but also very difficult for English learners to answer this question.
All right, what's up?
What's up? So if somebody says, what's up, what does that mean?
That means, what's going on? What's new? How are you? How is it going?
Okay.
Hi.
So how should you answer this?
Okay, so think of what's up as being a question about what's new, what's happening. You can say, what's up? Oh, not much.
Not much.
Okay, what's up means what's new? Oh, not much is new. Not much.
Everything is the same.
Or what's up? You could say, hey, hi, how are you? It's another way to say hi.
Okay.
But you can't say the sky.
Right. Or sometimes English learners will say, fine, thank you, because they think that what's up means how are you?
No, that's different. So you cannot say fine, thank you, fine, well. These are words about that answer how are you questions, but this isn't a how are you question.
Right.
This is a what's new question.
Yeah.
What's new or hi.
Okay. So somebody says, what's up? You can say not much, or you can say, hey, what's up? You can say, what's up back?
What's up? What's up with you?
Yeah, what's up with you? Okay, so that's our first phrase. Now, when the guy was talking about the hairdryer and the computer, he finished off that paragraph by saying, you see what I'm getting at here?
Okay, you're doing this. You use the hairdryer. You leave the computer on. Do you see what I'm getting at here? This phrase, do you see what I'm getting at?
It means, do you understand what I'm talking about? Do you see my point?
That means I haven't said exactly what I mean, but you should understand what I'm saying. So he's saying you're wasting electricity. You use all of these services more than I do.
Right.
And we could say, maybe Marco didn't get a good grade in his English test last week. And I say, listen, maybe it has to do with your study habits or how much you love video games or how little time you spend at school. Do you see what I'm getting at?
Okay, so you're not saying directly that I don't study. You're
Right.
just telling me the reasons maybe why as to why I'm not studying.
Right, like a hint.
Okay, so that's what you say when you don't tell somebody directly what the problem is. You say, you see what I'm getting at here?
Do you see what I'm getting at?
Okay.
Getting at means hinting.
Okay, and our last phrase, when they kept talking about the bills, one of the persons said, you are using way more gas and water than me. So what about this way more?
Way more. Way means much or a lot. So we could say, you are using a lot more water than I am. Or, you're using way more water.
Okay.
This is very spoken language. This is not written language, so don't write this down on your tests. But way more means a lot more, much more.
Okay, you can say Bob is way more attractive than Bill.
That's right. Or this is way more interesting than that show.
Okay, so you can say way more instead of much more or a lot more, but it's usually spoken English.
Exactly.
All right, let's listen to our dialogue for the last time, and we'll be back in a bit to talk a little bit more.
Hi, and welcome to the English Podcast Zone, your space for real English, real life, and real learning. Today, we're diving into a topic that so many people deal with, especially in college or early adulthood: living with a roommate. Sounds like a great idea at first. Split the rent, share the chores, save money, but it can quickly turn into a source of stress and daily conflict. That's why today we're going to talk all about how to handle the tricky parts of shared living, and while we're at it, you'll learn a ton of natural, real-life English you can actually use. Let's start with something that often causes tension: household bills. Gas, electricity, water, internet, these are all basic services, and if you're sharing a place, you're expected to share the cost. common phrase here is to go halves on the bills. For example, we agreed to go halves on the electricity bill. It means both people pay 50%. But what happens when one person thinks they're paying more than their fair share? Maybe they feel like the other person is using more energy or taking advantage. A really useful phrase here is, "This doesn't feel fair." You can follow that with reasons. "I feel like I barely use the heater, but the bill is always so high." Or, "You're taking 40-minute showers every day, it adds up." Now let's talk about communication. If you're upset but trying to stay calm, you might say, "Can we talk about something real quick?" Or, "I wanted to bring something up." These are gentle ways to start a difficult conversation. Another important expression is, "You see what I'm getting at?" This is something we say when we're trying to explain a problem without being too direct. For example, "You're always having friends over late and I've been super tired in the mornings. You see what I'm getting at?" It's a subtle way to say, "This is a problem for me." Here's a useful cultural tip. In many English-speaking countries, people value direct communication but also politeness. So, when you have a problem with someone you live with, it's important to be clear but not rude. You might say something like, "I've noticed that the air conditioner is always running. Do you think we could agree on some limits to save on the electric bill?" This shows maturity and keeps things peaceful. Also, when it comes to chores, it's smart to use language like, "Can we split the cleaning duties evenly?" Or, "I don't mind doing the dishes, but could you take care of the trash?" Notice the use of modal verbs like can and could. These are softer and more polite. So far, we've looked at vocabulary and phrases about bills, fairness, and polite confrontation. These are all part of real-life English that textbooks usually don't teach. But when you live with someone, especially someone who's not family, knowing these expressions can make all the difference between peace and chaos. Living with a roommate isn't just about splitting the rent, it's about sharing space, habits, and expectations. And one of the most common problems roommates face is how differently people live their daily lives. Some people are night owls, others are early birds. Some like loud music, others prefer total silence. These differences can lead to misunderstandings or even arguments if they're not handled properly. Let's start with the idea of personal boundaries. This means knowing where your comfort zone ends and someone else's begins. For example, if your roommate always brings friends over without telling you, you might say, "I'd really appreciate a heads up before you have guests over." That phrase, "a heads up," is a great way to ask for a warning in advance. It's casual and friendly, but it clearly expresses your needs. You can also use phrases like, "I need some quiet time tonight," or "Would you mind keeping the volume down?" Notice how soft and respectful these expressions are. They don't accuse, they request. Now, another common issue, cleanliness. Everyone has a different standard of what's clean enough. Some people wash dishes right away, others leave them in the sink for days. To bring this up politely, you could say, "I've noticed the kitchen's been a bit messy lately. Do you think we could make a cleaning schedule?" Cleaning schedule is a practical solution and a great vocabulary word to remember. You might also use, "Could we take turns cleaning the bathroom?" Or, "Let's divide the chores so it's fair for both of us." Using words like take turns, divide, and fair shows that you're trying to cooperate, not complain. Sometimes the issue isn't chores, it's personal habits. Maybe your roommate leaves their laundry everywhere or forgets to take out the trash. Instead of getting angry, try using I statements. "I feel uncomfortable when the trash piles up." Or, "I get stressed when the apartment feels cluttered." These are gentle ways to express your feelings without blaming the other person. Here's a grammar point worth noting. In English, we often use present perfect when talking about recent habits or repeated actions, like, "I've noticed you've been using the living room as a home office lately." This tense is useful for giving feedback because it shows something has been happening over time, not just once. Also, if you want to suggest a solution, try starting with, "How about we," for example, "How about we set some rules for shared spaces?" Or, "How about we alternate who takes out the trash each week?" It's a helpful and inclusive way to move from problem to solution. When living with a roommate, the goal isn't to win every argument, it's to build mutual respect. That means understanding each other's routines, preferences, and limits. And the best way to do that is through clear, calm, and respectful communication. That's a skill that will help you far beyond just roommate situations. It's useful at work, in friendships, and in every area of life. One of the biggest challenges when sharing a space is learning how to manage conflict without damaging the relationship. Disagreements are bound to happen, over bills, noise, guests, cleanliness, but the way you handle them can make all the difference. In English, there are certain expressions and strategies that help keep the conversation productive rather than emotional. Let's begin with a powerful communication technique. Stay focused on the issue, not the person. Instead of saying, "You're so inconsiderate," try, "It's been hard for me to focus with the TV on all evening." This shifts the tone from attack to explanation. A very helpful structure in English is the "I feel when because" format. For example, "I feel frustrated when the kitchen is left dirty because I usually cook in the mornings and it slows me down." This is a clear, polite, and emotionally honest way to express your experience. Now, let's explore vocabulary for finding middle ground. Sometimes your roommate may not agree with your preferences, but that doesn't mean you can't find a solution. Use expressions like, "Can we meet halfway on this?" "What if we compromise?" "Let's find a solution that works for both of us." For example, if your roommate likes hosting parties and you prefer peace and quiet, you could say, "How about no guests after 10 p.m. on weekdays, but weekends are more flexible?" These kinds of suggestions show maturity and respect for both sides. Also, if you feel things are getting tense, it's okay to suggest taking a break from the conversation. You can say, "Let's take a minute and talk about this later when we've both cooled off." Or, "I think we both need some space to think before continuing." Notice how polite and emotionally intelligent these phrases sound. They help prevent escalation. There's also a difference between assertive and aggressive language. Being assertive means stating your needs clearly but calmly. For example, "I need quiet after 11 p.m. because I have early mornings." Aggressive would be, "If you don't stop the noise, I'll report you." One shows boundaries, the other builds walls. Another tip is to ask for feedback. You can say, "Let me know if anything I'm doing is bothering you too." This creates balance and shows that you're open to hearing their side, which encourages a more cooperative living environment. In roommate situations, don't wait for things to become unbearable. Handle small annoyances early, using soft but clear expressions like, "Can we talk about something small that's been on my mind?" Or, "There's something I'd like to clear up before it becomes a bigger issue." This is a great habit, not just in English communication, but in life. It shows you're proactive, thoughtful, and respectful of both your own comfort and the other person's. Roommates may come and go, but learning how to communicate during conflict is a skill that stays with you forever. Let's shift our focus now to one of the most important and often overlooked aspects of living with a roommate: setting expectations early. So many roommate problems can be avoided if you have an honest conversation at the beginning about your habits, routines, and preferences. In English, this kind of conversation is called setting ground rules. A ground rule is a basic agreement that helps keep things clear and fair. For example, you might say, "Let's agree on a cleaning schedule so we both know what to do." Or, "Can we talk about quiet hours, especially during the week?" These phrases are polite, organized, and very natural. When having this conversation, it helps to use the modal verb should. For example, "Should we take turns buying common items like toilet paper and dish soap?" "Should we make a rule about how often guests can stay over?" This kind of language opens the door for discussion. It's not demanding, it's suggesting. Another helpful expression is, "What are your thoughts on?" For example, "What are your thoughts on keeping the front door locked at all times?" "What are your thoughts on smoking in the apartment?" This phrase shows that you care about the other person's opinion and want to create shared rules, not just your own. Now let's talk about shared items and shared spaces. This can be a big source of tension. Some roommates don't mind sharing food, towels, or even clothes, while others prefer everything separate. So it's important to ask, are we sharing groceries or buying our own? Do you mind if I use your blender? Is it okay if I leave my books on the coffee table, or would you prefer I keep them in my room? Small questions like these may seem simple, but they prevent misunderstandings. And they give you useful English phrases you can use in many areas of life, not just roommate situations. Let's also look at expressions for discussing finances, which can feel awkward but are very important. You can say, would you prefer to split everything 50-50 or divide based on usage? What's the best way to handle the bills? Venmo, cash, bank transfer? Using questions like these helps make sure you're both on the same page. Now, if something does go wrong, you can refer back to the rules you agreed on. For example, we agreed to split the internet bill, so could you send me your half by Friday? Or, I thought we decided on no loud music after 10 p.m. This is why setting expectations early is so valuable. It gives you a reference point when you need to solve problems. Finally, it's helpful to schedule a quick check-in every month or so. You can say, hey, do you want to chat about how things are going in the apartment? This keeps communication open and prevents small issues from growing. Whether you're living with a stranger, a friend, or even a partner, being clear about expectations is one of the best ways to avoid tension and create a comfortable home. And doing it in English helps you practice polite, confident communication, a skill you'll use again and again. Now let's talk about a reality many people deal with when living with roommates: different lifestyles and personalities. When you share a home, you're not just sharing space, you're blending routines, habits, and sometimes even cultures. And this can lead to confusion if there's not enough understanding or flexibility. Let's start with a common situation. One roommate is super tidy and organized, while the other is more relaxed and casual. In English, we often describe this using phrases like, I'm pretty laid back about cleaning, or I'm more of a neat freak, to be honest. These phrases help explain your style in a light, non-judgmental way. If you're the tidy one and your roommate leaves things everywhere, instead of saying you're messy, try, would you mind tidying up your stuff in the living room? It helps me feel less stressed. Or, could we keep the kitchen counters clear after cooking? Notice the polite tone and the focus on how it makes you feel, not on attacking them. Now let's look at sleep schedules, which are another common clash. One person might stay up late watching movies or gaming, while the other gets up at 6 a.m. for work. To keep the peace, you can use phrases like, I usually go to bed around 10. Would it be okay to keep things quiet after that? Or, I'm a night owl, but I'll use headphones to keep the noise down. Sharing your habits clearly and offering solutions shows respect and maturity. If your roommate has a different cultural background, this can also affect daily life. Maybe they cook with strong-smelling spices or celebrate holidays you're not familiar with. A good way to talk about this is, can you tell me more about that dish? It smells interesting. Or let me know if I ever do anything that feels rude. I want to be respectful. These are open, curious, and friendly ways to connect while learning about someone else's way of life. Now let's look at phrases for negotiating routines. Maybe the bathroom is always occupied when you need it. Instead of complaining, say, do you think we could figure out a bathroom schedule in the mornings? Or, would you be okay switching shower times a bit so we're not both rushing? These phrases are practical and easy to use. When it comes to shared appliances like the washing machine, microwave, or Wi-Fi, timing and fairness matter. You can say, is there a time that works best for you to use the laundry machine? Or, the Wi-Fi's been really slow at night. Are you downloading anything heavy? This isn't accusing, it's investigating in a friendly way. And here's a bonus phrase for those times when things just feel off. I feel like we're out of sync lately. Want to catch up and reset some things? It's a gentle way to reopen communication and fix small problems before they grow. So whether your roommate is super social and you're more private or the other way around, remember, it's not about changing who they are or who you are, it's about finding a rhythm that works for both. And doing it in English with kindness and clarity is one of the most powerful communication skills you can develop. Let's explore a situation that many roommates eventually face. Someone wants to move out. Maybe they got a new job in another city, or maybe the living situation just isn't working anymore. Whatever the reason, moving out can be emotional, awkward, and stressful. But if you handle it the right way and use the right language, it can also be smooth, respectful, and drama-free. First, let's look at how to bring up the idea of moving out. You don't want to surprise your roommate at the last minute. A polite and responsible way to start the conversation is, "I've been thinking about making a change in my living situation." Or, "I wanted to let you know that I'm planning to move out in the next month or so." These expressions are calm, respectful, and show that you're giving notice in advance. In English-speaking countries, it's very common to give at least 30 days notice before leaving a shared home. If you're the one staying and your roommate says they're leaving, you can respond supportively. "Thanks for letting me know in advance, I really appreciate it." Or, "I understand. Let me know how I can help with the transition." Now, let's talk about final responsibilities. Before someone moves out, there are usually things to take care of: dividing the last utility bills, cleaning shared spaces, and possibly returning the keys. Useful phrases include, "Let's settle the bills before you go so we're all clear." "Do you want to split the cost of a cleaner for the common areas?" "Please make sure to leave your key before moving out." It's also a good idea to talk about the security deposit if you paid one together. You can say, "How should we handle the deposit? Should we contact the landlord together?" Or, "If there's any damage, we should agree on how it'll be covered." These phrases show you're being responsible and fair, important values in any shared living situation. And what if things didn't end well? Maybe the relationship became tense or the other person caused problems. Even then, it's better to take the high road. You might say, "I think it's best for both of us to move on. I hope everything works out for you." This kind of sentence shows emotional intelligence and avoids unnecessary conflict. Now, if you're the one asking someone else to move out, that can be even more delicate. Use language that focuses on your needs, not their faults. For example, "I've realized I need a different kind of living environment right now." Or, "This arrangement isn't really working for me anymore, and I think it's time to make a change." Of course, if the person has broken agreements, like not paying rent or violating house rules, you can be more direct while still respectful. "We agreed on splitting the bills and keeping the place clean, but those expectations haven't been met. I think it's time for us to go our separate ways." Notice the use of expressions like "go our separate ways" or "make a change." These are softer ways to deliver a difficult message. Leaving a shared home doesn't have to be a disaster. With clear communication, respect, and the right English expressions, it can be a healthy ending, and even the beginning of something better for everyone involved. Now let's talk about something every roommate deal needs but many people forget: respecting privacy and personal space. Even if you live in a small apartment or a shared dorm, everyone still needs moments of quiet, time alone, and control over their own things. Respecting those boundaries is key to maintaining peace, and learning how to talk about them in English makes it even easier. Let's start with common situations that can feel like a violation of privacy. For example, your roommate walks into your room without knocking or borrows your things without asking. In English, there are polite but clear ways to address this. "Hey, would you mind knocking before coming into my room? I'd really prefer if you asked before borrowing my stuff." These phrases aren't aggressive, but they set healthy boundaries. Another useful phrase is, "I need a bit of personal space right now." You can use this when you're overwhelmed or just want time to yourself. It's especially helpful if you've had a long day and don't feel like chatting or socializing. You can also say, "I'm not in the mood to talk right now, can we catch up later?" This shows emotional honesty without being rude. When you want to make sure something stays private, you can use this very useful expression: "I'd rather keep that between us." This is a natural way to say, "Please don't share this with others." Soft but firm. Now let's talk about shared versus personal belongings. When you live with someone, it's common to have both items that you both use, like the microwave or sofa, and things that belong only to one person. If you want to set a clear boundary, you can say, "Feel free to use the coffee maker, but I'd prefer to keep my food separate." Or, "You're welcome to use the dishes, but my toiletries are just for me." Using phrases like "feel free to" and "I'd prefer to" makes your message sound warm but still respectful of your own limits. Now, sometimes the problem isn't physical space, it's emotional space. Maybe your roommate likes to talk all the time, but you need silence to concentrate. Or maybe they ask personal questions that feel too intrusive. You can say, "I'm a bit more private about that kind of stuff, I hope you don't mind." Or, "I really value quiet time in the evenings, it helps me recharge." These are gentle ways to express who you are without making the other person feel wrong. Another great tool for smoother living is to ask permission instead of assuming. Phrases like, "Is it okay if I invite a friend over tonight?" "Would you mind if I use the living room for a Zoom call later?" show that you're considerate and make the other person feel respected. If your roommate is very different from you, maybe louder, more social, or less organized, you don't have to try to change them. Instead, you can say, "I think we have different styles, but I'd like to find a way that works for both of us." This kind of open-minded statement shows maturity and makes it easier to have a productive conversation. Respecting personal space is more than just physical distance. It's about emotional awareness, clear communication, and kindness. And with the right English phrases, you can build stronger, healthier relationships in any shared space. Let's now turn our attention to something that adds joy but also potential tension to any roommate situation: hosting guests. Whether it's inviting friends over for dinner, having a partner spend the night, or throwing a small party, guests in a shared space require clear communication, mutual respect, and thoughtful boundaries, especially when you're navigating all this in English. Start with this basic principle: inform before invite. It's not polite to surprise your roommate with unexpected visitors. A simple and natural way to ask is, "Hey, I was thinking of having a few friends over Friday night. Would that be okay with you?" Or, "Would you be cool with my cousin staying over this weekend?" These phrases are casual, friendly, and respectful. They also give your roommate a chance to respond honestly. If you're the one being surprised by guests too often and it's starting to bother you, you can say, "I've been feeling a bit overwhelmed with how often people are coming over. Could we set some limits?" Or, "I'm okay with visitors, but I'd appreciate a heads up beforehand." That phrase again, "a heads up," means advance notice. It's a key expression when talking about expectations in shared living. Now, let's talk about overnight guests. This can be tricky, especially when someone's partner is staying over regularly. You might hear someone say, "It kind of feels like we have a third roommate." That's a light, indirect way to bring up the issue. If you need to address this directly, here are some useful phrases. "Can we talk about how often your boyfriend stays over? I'm starting to feel like the space isn't being shared equally." Or, "I don't mind visitors, but I think we need some guidelines around overnight stays." Notice how these statements use I language to express feelings without blaming. This keeps the tone respectful, which is essential in sensitive situations. Now let's look at noise and behavior during visits. If guests are staying late or making a mess, you can say, "I'm glad you're having fun, but the noise last night made it really hard for me to sleep." Or, "Would you mind asking your friends to clean up after themselves before they leave?" These are polite but firm ways to communicate your needs. And here's another handy phrase: "I'm okay with guests as long as it doesn't interfere with my routine." If you want to avoid problems altogether, it's smart to create guest rules together from the start. You might say, "Should we agree on some ground rules for having people over?" Or, "How about we limit guests to weekends only or set a quiet time at night?" These conversations may feel uncomfortable at first, but they build trust and reduce conflict in the long run. Also, it's nice to be thoughtful when you're the one bringing people into the space. Simple phrases like, "We'll try to keep it down," "We won't stay too late," "Let me know if it ever gets disruptive," show that you care about your roommate's comfort too. Guests can bring life and fun into a home, but only when everyone feels comfortable. By using clear, natural English to discuss boundaries, expectations, and common courtesy, you'll keep your shared space peaceful and your relationship strong. And now, let's focus on one of the most valuable but often underused tools in shared living: regular roommate check-ins. Just like relationships at work or in families, roommate relationships benefit from open communication. Taking time every few weeks to talk honestly can prevent small annoyances from becoming big problems. And doing it in English? That's a great opportunity to practice your skills in thoughtful, real-life conversations. You don't need anything formal. A simple, casual approach works best. You might say, "Hey, want to check in about how things are going around the apartment?" Or, "How are you feeling about our living setup lately?" These kinds of questions open the door to a low-pressure, two-way conversation. The goal isn't to complain, it's to improve understanding and strengthen cooperation. Let's look at some language for giving feedback politely. Start with something positive. "I really appreciate how you've been keeping the kitchen clean lately. It makes a big difference." Then, if you need to bring something up, use softening phrases like, "There's just one small thing I've been meaning to mention," or "I've noticed something and I think it'd help if we talked about it." These expressions help you express concern without sounding harsh or critical. If you're on the receiving end of feedback, here's some language to show openness. "Thanks for bringing that up. I didn't realize it was bothering you. I'll work on that. Let me know if I slip up." These phrases demonstrate emotional intelligence and make your roommate feel heard and respected. Sometimes it helps to ask direct, practical questions like, "Are there any small changes I could make to make things more comfortable for you? Is there anything about our routines that's been frustrating you?" These types of questions show maturity and make it easier for your roommate to be honest. You can also use this check-in time to plan ahead. For example, "Are you okay with guests next weekend? Should we restock cleaning supplies together this week?" Asking these questions before they become urgent helps things run more smoothly and gives you chances to use everyday English in a real context. It's also a great time to talk about shared responsibilities. You might say, "Do we want to keep the same cleaning routine or change things up? Let's double-check the bills this month so everything's squared away." That phrase, "squared away," is a nice idiomatic expression meaning everything is settled, organized, or taken care of. And if everything's going well, don't forget to say so. Try, "I've really enjoyed how we've been handling things lately. It's made life a lot easier." Giving genuine positive feedback strengthens trust and creates a more peaceful environment. Regular roommate check-ins are a sign of emotional maturity and great communication. They also give you a perfect opportunity to practice natural English, learn new phrases, and express yourself clearly and kindly. When both people feel heard, understood, and supported, the entire living experience becomes more enjoyable for everyone. Let's bring everything together now by talking about something that goes beyond chores, bills, or space: building a positive and respectful roommate relationship. At the end of the day, sharing a home isn't just about avoiding conflict. It's about creating a comfortable, cooperative environment where both people can thrive. And one of the best ways to do that is through everyday kindness, clear communication, and, of course, confident English. Let's start with small habits that create a big impact. Simple gestures like cleaning up after yourself, offering to grab groceries, or just saying, "Hey, how was your day?" go a long way. These actions may seem basic, but they build trust and show that you're thoughtful. You can also use kind, encouraging language to strengthen your connection. Try, "Thanks for taking care of the dishes, really appreciate it. I noticed you were busy this week. Let me know if you need help with anything around the apartment." These kinds of comments show awareness and care without being overbearing. Another great practice is to celebrate small things. Maybe your roommate got a new job, passed an exam, or just made a great dinner. You can say, "Congrats, that's awesome news. Dinner smells amazing. You're a great cook." Giving compliments is a powerful way to create a more positive home, and it helps you build vocabulary around feelings, food, success, and more. Now let's talk about support during stress. Maybe your roommate is having a bad day or seems down. A kind phrase like, "Hey, you seem a bit off, everything okay?" Or "Let me know if you want to talk or need some space," can show empathy while still respecting their boundaries. On the other hand, if you're going through something and need support, you can be honest by saying, "Just a heads up, I've had a rough week, so I might be a bit quiet." Or, "I'm feeling overwhelmed right now, I really appreciate your patience." These are great ways to communicate your emotional state while keeping things peaceful at home. You might also want to do something together now and then, like cook a meal, watch a movie, or clean the apartment while playing music. To suggest this casually, you could say, "Want to order pizza and chill tonight? I was thinking of tidying up the living room this weekend. Feel like teaming up?" These invitations are relaxed and build a sense of partnership. Finally, remember this. Roommates don't have to become best friends, but a little kindness and communication can turn a shared apartment into a comfortable, supportive home. Use phrases like, "Let me know if there's anything I can do to make things better." "I've really enjoyed living here with you, it's made my life easier." Living with someone teaches you patience, respect, and compromise. And using English to navigate that experience builds not only your language skills, but also your confidence, your emotional intelligence, and your ability to connect with people from different backgrounds. Thank you for being a part of the English Podcast Zone.
Charlie, do you have a second?
Yeah, what's up?
Well, I went and paid the bills today, and you still haven't given me your half.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about that. I agreed we would go halves on all the bills, but frankly, I think it's unfair.
Unfair? Why?
Well, you have long hair and use the hairdryer every morning. I don't. You leave your computer on all night downloading torrents. I don't. You see what I'm getting at here?
You leave the air conditioner on day and night. You also take 30-minute showers, which means you're using way more gas and water than me.
Well, while we're on the subject, stop bringing your friends over for drinks every weekend. You always leave a mess and keep me up all night.
Maybe you should just move out and find another place.
Maybe you should move out.
So, Marco, have you ever had any of these problems with a roommate?
I've actually stayed away from roommates because of issues like this.
You mean you have not had many roommates because you're afraid of this situation?
Yeah, I've always actually tried to live on my own by myself, like in a small apartment or studio, or if I have to have a roommate, maybe just like one, not like a house full of roommates, because I think the more people there are, the little bit more complicated it gets. And if it's just two, it's a little bit simpler.
This is true, although sometimes I think it depends on the people that you're sharing a house with. Mm-hmm. I've had one awkward experience where people did not want to pay ever.
Really?
And they were always late with their payments, and one situation where people were very good about it. Mm-hmm. So always remembered and were very helpful. So it really depends.
Yeah, I think it's hard to live with someone always, of course. Even, if you start living with your girlfriend or boyfriend or you get married, it's kind of different to live with someone, So, and especially money-wise, I think it always complicates things with people.
Definitely. So I think you're right, though. If there's two people, it's very easy to share the bills. But if there's 5 people or 6 people, it's very hard to find out who spent more money or what the rules are.
Yeah, so it can get a little bit complicated. But I'm sure a lot of our listeners have probably had roommates before, maybe in college, maybe even now. So let's hear those experiences and maybe those good and bad stories about living with other people.
So please get in touch with us. Our website is englishpod.com. There's lots of places for you to ask questions and to post your own experiences with roommates. We hope to see you there. And until next time.
Bye
everyone.
The English Pod Audio Review. Listen to the meaning, then say the vocabulary word.
A document that shows how much you must pay. Bill. Divide equally. Go halves. To vacate a residence, cause to leave. Move out. What I am trying to say. What I am getting at. Much more, or a lot more. Way more.
Let's try that faster.
A document that shows how much you must pay. Bill. To vacate a residence, cause to leave. Move out. Much more, or a lot more. Way more. What I am trying to say. What I am getting at. Divide equally. Go halves.
Now say the word and hear it in a sentence.
Bill. I paid the gas bill and water bill this morning. Bill. I am overwhelmed with bills. I don't know where I will get the money to pay them all. Bill. My girlfriend always takes care of paying the bills. What I am getting at. What are you getting at? Are you saying I'm lazy? What I am getting at. I don't understand what you're getting at. Be more direct. What I am getting at. What do you think he's getting at? I have no idea what he's talking about. Way more. This dress costs way more than I expected. Way more. This flight is taking away more time than it should. I think we are lost. Way more. Carl is way more mature than you. Go halves. How about we go halves on the dinner bill? Go halves. Let's take a taxi together and go halves. Go halves. I am willing to go halves with you for this cake if you share your milk with me. Move out. I have to move out of my apartment this weekend. Move out. Carol just moved out of her boyfriend's house, so she's living with me for a while. Move out. I told my landlord I will move out by the end of the month.